In a small town where everyone knows your name, darkness can lurk behind the brightest smiles. This is the story of Skylar Neese, a vibrant teenager whose trust in her closest friends would lead to a chilling mystery that shook an entire community. This is True Crime After Dark, and I'm Vanessa Gray. Skylar Annette Neese was born on February 10, 1996, the only child to Dave and Mary Neese. Growing up in Star City, West Virginia, Skylar had the kind of upbringing you'd find in a modern Norman Rockwell painting. Loving parents, a cozy home, and dreams bigger than her small town. Precocious from a young age, she was reading and doing math ahead of her classmates. Skylar's compassion extended even to ants on the sidewalk. Her father recalls her feeding them breadcrumbs because, in her words, they have to eat too. Skylar grew up in a working-class family. Her father worked at Walmart, and her mother was an administrative assistant in a cardiac lab. Despite modest means, Skylar's life was rich with love and support. Her parents doted on her. She formed a particularly strong bond with her father, often spending special daddy-daughter days together. Academically gifted, Skylar was a straight-A honor student at University High School. She balanced her studies with a part-time job at Wendy's and aspired to become a criminal defense attorney, motivated by a deep sense of justice and loyalty to those she loved. Skylar was known for her bubbly personality, fierce loyalty, and a sharp, witty sense of humor that made her a beloved presence among friends and classmates. Around the age of 8, Skylar met Sheila Eddy at a local community center. The two quickly became inseparable, almost like sisters. Their families grew close as well, with Dave and Mary Neese treating Sheila like a second daughter. Their families grew close as well, with Dave and Mary Neese treating Sheila like a second daughter. During their freshman year of high school, the duo welcomed Rachel Schoaf into their tight-knit circle. Rachel, a talented actress and singer from a devout Catholic family, completed the trio that would come to call themselves the Three Musketeers. On the night of July 6, 2012, Skylar slipped out of her bedroom window just after midnight, meeting up with Sheila and Rachel for what was supposed to be a typical night of teenage mischief. But Skylar never returned. When questioned by police, Sheila admitted that she did pick up Skylar, but claimed she brought her back home. Sheila told Skylar's mom that they had picked Skylar up around 11 p.m. on July 5, 2012, to drive around and get high, but insisted that they dropped her off at the end of the road near the apartment building before midnight, so that she could quietly sneak back inside. So in that short space of time in between, she had gone missing. Had she gone off on her own accord? Had she met somebody else on her way home? Skylar's father stated that her window was open, her charger still plugged in. Skylar had planned to come back, but now she was gone. Flyers plastered every corner. Candlelight vigils lit up the night. Her friends, Sheila and Rachel, joined the search, helping Dave and Mary knock on doors, post on social media, plead for Skylar's safe return. Skylar was initially considered by law enforcement authorities to be a runaway, and an Amber Alert was not issued for the then minimum 48 hours in connection with her disappearance. An early tip indicated that Skylar had been seen in North Carolina, but the Star City Police Department determined that the person spotted was not Skylar. The FBI and the West Virginia State Police joined the search for Skylar on September 10, 2012, and began interviewing her school friends. Police also found that, in the days leading up to her death, Skylar's Twitter account showed that something had gone awry. On July 4, 2012, 2 days before she was murdered, Skylar tweeted, "It really doesn't take much to put me off," and "Sick of being at home. Thanks, friends. Love hanging out with you all, too." The day before she was killed, Skylar tweeted, "You doing like that is why I can never completely trust you." 6 months after the disappearance of Skylar Neese, Rachel suffered a nervous breakdown, prompting her mother to call 911. In the background of the call, Rachel can be heard screaming.
I have an issue with a 16-year-old daughter of mine. I can't control her anymore. She's screaming. She's running through the neighborhood. Give me the phone. No, this is Jessica. This is over. Hurry up. Get away from her. Oh, God. She just gave me a block. Oh, God. Hurry up, please.
Meanwhile, the first cracks in their story appeared when surveillance footage captured a blurry figure, Skylar, slipping into a car at 12:30 a.m., not 11 p.m. as her friends had claimed. Cell phone records contradicted their timelines. Their stories didn't add up. As days turned to weeks, then months, investigators pressed harder. The community, once supportive, began to whisper. Doubts turned to suspicion. Skylar's father later stated that he went to the police and told them, "Leave them alone. They're both missing their best friend as much as we are." Rachel was taken to a local psychiatric hospital, where she remained for 5 days. After her release on the 3rd January 2013, Rachel asked to be taken to her lawyer's office, where she then confessed to the crime. She stated that she had stabbed Skylar to death with Sheila. She agreed to lead authorities to Skylar's remains, which were in a wooded area over the Pennsylvania state line, about 20 miles from Star City. The motivation Rachel gave for the murder was they didn't like her and didn't want to be friends with her anymore. Skylar hadn't run away. She hadn't been kidnapped. She was betrayed and brutally murdered by her best friends. On March 13, 2013, U.S. Attorney Office reported the devastating news that human remains found in the woodland area in Brave, Pennsylvania, belonged to Skylar Neese. Her body was found less than 48 kilometers away from her home. On May 1, 2013, Rachel pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. The teens attempted to bury Skylar's body, but were unable to do so and instead covered the body with branches. The court transcript indicates that other students overheard conversations between Rachel and Sheila about the murder plot, but failed to report it, mistakenly believing that the girls were joking. According to Rachel, the plan was simple: pick up Skylar, drive her to the woods, count to 3, and then attack. During her January 2013 confession, Rachel had told authorities she and Sheila had planned Skylar's murder while in science class together. The plan was to pick her up from her house at night and drive to a remote area to smoke marijuana. Once they were in the woods, Rachel said the plan was to count to 3, then stab Skylar to death. Skylar was stabbed more than 50 times. Her last word was, "Why?" In the months that followed, Sheila regularly tweeted about the usual typical teenage issues, hating homework, watching TV, and so on. She even tweeted about her and Rachel's close friendship, writing in one tweet, "No one on this earth can handle me and Rachel. If you think you can, you're wrong." On the morning of March 13, 2013, when the U.S. Attorney's Office publicly announced that they had found Skylar's body, Sheila, still keeping up appearances, pretended to be devastated over the news that her friend had been found dead, tweeting, "Rest easy, Skylar, you'll always be my best friend," with a photo montage of her and Neese together, and the words, "Worst day of my whole life." Attempts to trap Sheila into a confession failed, but forensic evidence told its own story. Eventually, investigators conducted a search warrant of Sheila's house and confiscated her computer, phone, and tablet, knives from the kitchen, and a car from the residence, a Toyota Camry. An FBI analysis of the car found Skylar's blood DNA in the trunk of the vehicle. On May 1, 2013, Sheila was arrested in a restaurant parking lot. Both teens were charged with murder as adults.
Briefly, on behalf of Sheila Eddy and in her right of allocution, I would state that while clearly understood by the court, the prosecuting attorney's office, and law enforcement, the silence which has surrounded these proceedings and our work in them should not be construed by the Neese family or any member of our community as a sign or expression of disrespect or as a sign of lack of remorse by Sheila Eddy and any member of her family, or as a sign of any lack of concern, worry, or caring by Sheila Eddy or any member of her family resulted from Skylar's death. The silence which has surrounded these proceedings was caused and insisted upon by me so that the work we needed to do on the defense was to preserve the integrity of the proceedings, the rights of Sheila Eddy, the rights of Rachel Schoaf, and most importantly, the rights of Skylar Neese and her family, so they can be protected without interference from the press, public opinion, or the statements and expressions made on the internet and in social media, which have been numerous. Now that we have come to this place and time in the proceeding, I can state without hesitation or reservation that all concerned must know and understand that Sheila Eddy, my client, and her family recognize that the Neese family is in a constant state of despair, loneliness, and sadness as a result of Skylar's death. For that, Sheila Eddy and her family are and will be eternally sorry. These proceedings are now coming to a close. With this conclusion, we hope that all families, the Neese family, most importantly, the Eddy family, and the Schoaf family, all tragically affected by the actions of Sheila and Rachel, resulting in Skylar's death, can move forward in a more peaceful and hopeful way.
Rachel was sentenced to 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10. Her family issued a public apology, and at her sentencing, Rachel broke down, apologizing to Skylar's family, her own, and to God. One haunting clue came from a diary entry Rachel wrote the day after the murder, begging for forgiveness for what happened that night, and for all these lies. Rachel Schoaf pled guilty to second-degree murder, earning 30 years in prison. Sheila Eddy pled guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life. According to court transcripts, Rachel testified that she and Sheila picked up Skylar Neese in Sheila's car late that night. Hidden in the trunk were cleaning supplies, bleach, rags, wet wipes, a shovel, and clean clothes for both girls to change into after the murder. The knives they planned to use were wrapped in towels and tucked under their arms. At around 12:30 a.m., the car pulled up to Skylar's apartment complex. Surveillance footage later showed her climbing into the back seat, unaware of what was to come. The three teens then drove to a remote spot in Brave, Pennsylvania, a familiar place they'd often visited to smoke weed together. Once there, they got out and started chatting. At some point, Rachel and Sheila pretended they'd forgotten a lighter. Skylar offered to go back to the car to get one. With her back turned, the two girls silently counted to 3. Then, on cue, they launched their attack. Skylar tried to run but didn't get far. Rachel tackled her and began stabbing her, with Sheila joining in moments later. During the struggle, Skylar managed to grab Rachel's knife and stabbed her above the ankle. Rachel claimed she stopped after being injured, but Sheila didn't. She continued stabbing until, as Rachel chillingly described, the strange sounds from Skylar's throat stopped, and there was complete silence. Once they were sure she was dead, the girls tried to bury the body, but the ground was too rocky. Instead, they covered her with branches, dirt, and leaves. They changed into clean clothes, wiped themselves and the car down, and then drove off, leaving Skylar's body behind in the woods. In her 2023 parole hearing, Rachel finally revealed a motive. She and Sheila had been in a romantic relationship, and Skylar had become a threat to their secret. This motive had long been suspected, but never confirmed until then. Skylar herself had written in her own diary in 2011, describing a night of underage drinking at Rachel's house, during which Rachel and Sheila became intimate, while Skylar, afraid to leave the room and get caught, witnessed everything. One of Skylar's last tweets was, "I'd tell the whole school all the I have on everyone, which is a lot. Hashtag if I could get away with it." Did this tweet seal her fate? She claims she and Sheila were remorseful immediately after the murder, crying and vomiting, but Sheila has never shown any public remorse. Sheila Eddy was publicly named as the second suspect in September 2013. Indicted on charges including first-degree murder and kidnapping, she initially pleaded not guilty. But in January 2014, facing additional charges from Pennsylvania, she took a plea deal, admitting guilt in exchange for avoiding further prosecution. She was sentenced to life in prison with mercy, meaning she's eligible for parole after 15 years, due in 2028. At the time of her arrest, she was held in a juvenile facility. Rachel apologized to the family at the parole hearing in 2023, stating that she loved her, that what we did was terrible and she would trade places with her. Skylar's father stated that, "Because of that malicious monster, my child never got a limo for her prom. Instead, she got a ride in a coroner's vehicle. This narcissistic, first-degree, cold-blooded killer is not sorry for the brutal murder of my only child." Rachel's request for parole was denied. Rachel pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She and Sheila both confessed to having spent the better part of 12 months planning Skylar's killing. Dave Neese spoke after the hearing, saying the following.
Kind of like, thank God it's over. And, she's getting what she deserves. Judge Claude just made sure of that. Marcia made sure of that. And she'll be in a place where people just like her.
In that chapter now, and you can begin maybe that process of healing more at this point?
No, I don't think it ends anything. It's the same as it was. It just made sure one animal got put away.
Have either the Shows or Eddies reached out to you guys at all?
The Soaps had written a letter when Rachel pled guilty, but the Eddies have not, no.
Would you want them to? Do you care at all?
Not really. I don't really care what they have to say. I found out what I needed to know.
Dave, I also have a question for you. I know nothing will ever replace losing your daughter, but does this bring any sort of sense of closure, and can your family start to move on?
Like I said before, there's no closure at all, I don't think. I mean, who knows how my mom works right now. But if you can figure out, let me know. But the only way that there could be closure if they both were in prison. I know they're both in jail right now. One of them's been sentenced, one of them hasn't. After the other one gets sentenced, then we can start worrying about all that. But right now, I don't think it'll ever be closed. My little girl was something you can't close.
In the wake of unimaginable pain, Dave and Mary Neese fought for change. Skylar's Law now ensures faster alerts for missing children in West Virginia. Dave and Mary visit schools and prisons of what they call Skylar Talks, with the aim of helping others to understand the consequences their actions can take. Skylar's story reminds us that danger doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it wears a familiar face. Skylar trusted her friends with her life. In the end, it was that trust that cost her everything. May her memory serve as both a warning and a call to cherish the genuine friendships we hold dear. This has been True Crime After Dark with Vanessa Gray. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Episodes drop every Sunday. Until next time, be safe.